incredible journey of healing and encouragement they would lead me on. As you just heard, I am a survivor of child abuse, along with my mother and sister. Our perpetrator was our maternal grandfather. Almost 4.5 years ago, I received a phone call that changed the trajectory of my life. I was living in Nashville, interning with a magazine company, when my aunt, who recently became the guardian of my sister, called me. The phone call went like this. "Stephanie, are you sitting down?" "Yes," I said. "Stephanie, your grandfather abused your sister too." Those were close to being the most devastating words I ever heard, behind the news of my mother's death. A year prior to that, on that same porch my sister and aunt were currently sitting on, I told my aunt, revealing for the first time that I had been sexually abused at the hands of my grandfather. I asked her to remain silent because I was an adult and I wanted to keep it in the past. She asked, "Did he ever touch your sister?" And I confidently said no, believing that he never had. I was sure I had prevented that. I made a promise to myself that although I would remain silent about my own abuse, I would protect her. I truly believed I had succeeded up until that phone call. The day my aunt called me and told me the truth I always feared, I began a path that led me on a crusade against this insidious epidemic in our culture. The Children's Advocacy Center is a frontline defender against this epidemic, and my family and I know this firsthand. After that phone call, we had choices to make. Do we confront him? Do we seek prosecution? Do we tell our father? Within weeks, we told our father, we confronted our grandparents, and we demanded that my grandfather seek counsel. Most importantly, we demanded that he resign from his position as a pastor at a local church. He did resign, and he met with a psychologist shortly after our conversation. After that time, we didn't realize that the state of Georgia had recently passed mandated reporting laws, meaning that the psychologist had to report the crime to authorities. An investigator from the Pickens County, Georgia, requested an interview with my sister and I, so the authorities came to us. Halfway through my junior year of college, I met with an investigator in a sterile room designed for toddlers. I was uncomfortable and terribly nervous. During that meeting, I began to divulge very intimate details that to this day I have shared with very few people. And after that, the investigator was gone, and I was left to pick up the pieces of some very painful memories alone. In contrast, my sister went to the Children's Advocacy Center of Houston. She was interviewed in a warm, encouraging environment designed to allow survivors of trauma to feel as comfortable as possible. She was interviewed by a trained professional equipped to deal with survivors of trauma. After her interview, which was recorded and sent to investigators in Georgia, she was set up to meet with Karen. Karen was a trained childhood trauma therapist. She met with my sister every week for 3 years, at no cost to my family, because mental health is a service that the CAC provides. My grandfather ultimately went to prison for his crimes, but because of counseling, my sister and I are on the path to healing. My sister will not be one of the nearly 80% of childhood abuse survivors that develop a psychological disorder by the time they turn 21. She will likely not be part of the 30% of survivors that continue the cycle of abuse and abuse someone else, likely their children. She will never be one of the 2/3 of adults in addiction or abuse clinics that had child abuse in their background, and neither will I. The CAC changed both of our lives. This organization is providing hope to children here in Northwest Arkansas. They are providing life-altering mental health care services right here at home. They provide life-saving services every day. I volunteer for this organization because I believe in its mission. My sister and I are its mission. I learned through this experience that you cannot protect others with silence. The CAC is encouraging children to speak out and empowering them to take back their lives. This is what they did for me, and this is what they did for my sister, and this is what they are doing for so many children here in Northwest Arkansas. So I thank you for encouraging me, and thank you for becoming part of my life and allowing me to be part of this family. So thank you.
How much courage did it take to say that, eh? Well done. Chip, over to you.
Wow. Thank you, Stephanie. Our next award this evening is the Empowering Kids Award, and it's awarded not only to an individual, but actually a group of individuals who form an organization that in one way or another we've all been affected by in the room tonight, and that is Kimberly Clark. Kimberly Clark became involved with the Children's Advocacy Center approximately 10 years ago. KC was planning a team building event and wanted to have a charitable donation element to that event, and they decided to partner with a restaurant chain at the time to support the CAC. And KC and the partner restaurant, between the two of them, donated proceeds to the CAC as a result thereof. And that started this relationship between KC and CAC, and it developed further when Turo Byers, a friend of the CAC, began the Sweetest Day celebration in support of the CAC back in 2005. Kimberly Clark began to support this event by providing volunteers and later sponsoring the event. And since then, the relationship has flourished. And in fact, some of you have been a part of the flourishing of that, as John's been our gracious host on that event for the last few years. The Sweetest Day event, which this year is on the 18th of October, has become KC's vehicle of support of the CAC. KC also supports not only Sweetest Day, they support the skydive event, the glow run, and tonight's annual dinner. In fact, there are two tables right up front with Kimberly Clark colleagues here tonight, and thank you guys for what you do and for jumping in to eliminate child abuse and empower children to have a voice. So, KC, yes indeed. Kimberly Clark is proud to support the local community and is especially proud of the support of the Children's Advocacy Center and their mission to eliminate child abuse. John.
Thanks, Chip. It'd be a bit weird if I stood up here and accepted the award, and I'm not going to do that, but I am going to call upon a lady called Laurie Johnson, who has thrown herself into volunteering for the CAC. Chip just mentioned all the events we do. Laurie turns up at all those events. She sells raffle tickets. She volunteers. She puts up tables. She takes down tables. Her and her family have done a fantastic job in helping every single event that KC supports with the CAC. So, Laurie, if you come up here, please, and accept the award on behalf of Kimberly Clark. Thank you. Can you give her a round of applause, please? This is where Laurie gets nervous, and people have been winding her up all week, how, a 12-minute speech and things like that, so Laurie's just going to say a few words.
If I remember distinctly, he said it was 11, but the first thing John said is, could you accept this award, and you don't have to say anything. So I'll remind him of that later. But on behalf of KC, Kimberly Clark, we would really like to thank the Advocacy Center for this award. It means a lot because we actually have the opportunity to partner and to help you make a difference in the lives of those children. So thank you very much.
Cheers, Laurie. Thank you. I'll probably pay for that mistruth throughout the year now, right to year end. And it'll be in my eval as well, probably. Anyway.
Just take them to Thai Kitchen and it'll be all right.
So the final award this evening is the Advocate for Innocence Award, and that goes to John and Kathy Farrell, and I'm just going to read their story, and then I'm going to ask John and Kathy to come up onto the stage and say a few words after accepting the award. So John and Kathy Farrell were first introduced to the CAC and our mission by Pat and Bob Moore about 6 years ago. Since that time, they've become one of the most faithful supporters, not only of the CAC, but of Restoration Village as well. They have sponsored the children at the CAC and at Restoration Village during Christmas for those 6 years. They have also completed a building project at either Restoration Village or the CAC every one of those years. These projects have included completion of the CAC's 4th edition, childcare cottage, mental health edition, new bathrooms downstairs at Restoration Village, and remodeling of the chapel/library building. They have spread the word about the CAC by hosting the annual St. Patrick's celebration as a fundraiser at their home. Their annual Christmas gift wrap party and St. Patrick's Day celebration have included many of you who are here this evening to honour John and Kathy. 2 years ago, they assured the sustainability of the CAC by making a $1 million bequest. As of 3 weeks ago, they've added another $1 million to that amount. I personally have to add one more significant area of support to John and Kathy at the Sweeties Day. Both of them have won more items on the silent auction than anybody else. They've gone home with all sorts of stuff they don't really need, but anyway, including Coca-Cola bears, toiletry items, and all sorts of that. So they really are supporters of the CAC. And they've won quite a few trips, and I'm going to ask this later, but one not so amazing one. But John, you can tell me about that later. John and Kathy, needless to say, you are truly advocates for the CAC and for the innocence of children we see every day. You really are our heroes. So I'd like you to come up and accept the Advocate for Innocence Award. Please give John and Kathy Farrell a large round of applause. John's going to sit down on a stool to say a few words, and you'll realize why.
My voice goes in and out. Can I be understood in the back row? Okay. Good evening. Kathy and I are both proud and humbled at the same time being here to accept these plaudits. We started out, and the people up here have used polite words like mission and advocacy, and I guess I'm just a little more belligerent because I regard their efforts and their fight as a crusade on behalf of the children who basically are defenseless and need all of the help that we can give them. John made reference to what David and I have gone through the past 6 years with our infamous turnkey projects. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank some of the contractors that helped make this come true that are joined us tonight. David, Eugene, would you stand up very briefly? Now, Eugene especially, none of these projects would have been possible. They wouldn't have happened without your dedication and expertise. On behalf of Kathy and I and CAC, thank you so much. It is our hope and frankly expectation that you will continue to be a part of these ongoing projects. So there. Beverly and Joanna asked Kathy and I to provide, along with Chip, to provide. Well, why are you guys so interested, so in depth so up to your eyeballs in CAC and Restoration Ministries. The one non-reason is Kathy and I do not have a personal abuse story. That is until last month when the niece on my side of the family, after 25 years in a post-midnight uncle-niece conversation, let us know that she was the subject of child abuse for a couple of years and had kept it to herself, with the exception of her mother, for 25 years. And all that really did was underline the depth and the pervasiveness of this problem and how much it really, really needs to be addressed. The reasons why we got involved was again through the offices of our very good friends Bob and Pat Moore, in which they introduced us to, and I call it the Ingalls Saga, starting out with their trek across Oklahoma into Arkansas, found a problem, and again, I like using the word crusade, began a crusade for the benefit of the kids, and you didn't have to have personal stories. All you had to do was read the local paper. And multiple times a week you read about this stuff, and we kept seeing interviewed by CAC. And we just thought it was a wonderful story. It is a wonderful story. We were amazed at just how much CAC had accomplished, operating on a shoestring, living on a dream, and making it happen in spite of the fact that they didn't really have the horsepower. They didn't have it. It shouldn't work. When you look at the paper, it doesn't work. Wrong. It does work. And Kathy and I decided that here was a very, very worthy, and I love the word crusade, we wanted to join in, and more importantly, we thought if we put ourselves really behind this, we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to be a catalyst. We wanted to get our friends and neighbors involved in this and make this truly a community project. We have no objections about leading, but we did want this to happen. So the fact that we were convinced that a group like this, including ourselves, could make a difference if we really applied ourselves has really been the driver for Kathy and our involvement in this. I'd like to move forward a little bit because what John and Chip asked us to do was talk about what drove you in the past. And you've already heard that story. Now I'd like to move to the present day situation, at least as Kathy and I see the situation. Not that there never is not a crisis situation with child abuse, but we feel that the organization is at a tipping point. And when I say a tipping point, it is time for them to go to the next level, to better serve their clients, the children. And this is a piece of corporate growth, whether it's profit or nonprofit, that a large number of organizations find themselves in. And going back to my business background, it's been my experience that without the proper leadership, without the proper preparation, without putting together the appropriate building blocks, most of these efforts are not successful. Having said that, Kathy and I are very pleased with our informal due diligence because, handing out $2 million is very nice, but we wanted some type of assurance that it would be well spent, would be the best definition I can give you. But we're pleased to let you know that it appears as between the Engels and the current board of directors, they are following good preparation, and we see strong evidence that these building blocks are well in place, and which is the basis of them going forward and continuing to expand their services. They've done a marvelous job on a local level, a regional level, even a national level, and with the right governance, with the right plan, with the right people executing the plan, this will hopefully go forward and grow and really impact the level of child abuse that is currently present. Where we feel we come in is that a very important ingredient to any type of growth plan when you're talking about expansion in depth and breadth is money. And there's nothing magic about $2 million. What we're trying to accomplish with this gift or bequest is twofold. Number one, we want to help finance whatever plan as it comes into shape that the board is putting together. But we also want to use it as an invitation to our friends and neighbors and people like yourselves to join in and be part of this crusade. And I'm talking about doing this and I'm kind of left-brained, so I think in terms of consistent, scheduled attention contributions. So that is also part of the purpose of the monies that we're putting up. The program has become somewhat accelerated. Excuse me. On a personal note, somewhere between some and many of you are aware of my medical condition. The short form is I have incurable lung cancer and a relatively, according to very competent set of doctors, a limited time before the cancer takes over. Now, that has given Kathy and I pause, and frankly, in a strange way, become a benefit. It has allowed us to step back and reevaluate the time that we have together, which is our first priority. And we're doing that. And it is a life changer, believe me. And we thought we had a pretty good deal going into this deal after 26 years. But I guess more on my part, you have a tendency to take your life partner for granted and say, well, she already knows that. Well, guess what? They like to hear it anyway. But an additional benefit to this is this also gave us the opportunity to take a look at what we were trying to put together for CAC. Because we were given an opportunity to take a second look and make sure that we were going to do this right. And Kathy and I spent a fair amount of time brainstorming, saying, what are we trying to accomplish? What are our goals? And is this going to fulfill the mission that we've given our bequest? And the short form was, it was very well intended, but we can do better, and Kathy and I are working on that as we speak. We're looking forward to getting together, hopefully with the board of directors or whomever, and compare notes. And what we want to do is, again, meet the two goals that we talked about before. We want to provide necessary, at least seed money funding for the strategic plan that John Ship and the board come up with. And secondly, we want to use it as an incentive to have our friends, neighbors, and people, including people like yourselves,